2 minutes, a British passport is awarded to new arrivals in this country.
You see, public's a melting pot, it's an accent. And it's you, the public, who have got to melt, mate. I've got to tell ya.
But we just can't keep up such an influx. It's overloading the system.
That's public. What people like you have got to understand is that we in New Labour keep telling you that we've got the strictest, or one of the strictest, immigration control systems in the whole world, mate. And so you just consider the fact that if we in New Labour actually weren't on the ball, things would be even worse. You see, you need a firm hand on the tiller. It's an old sniper.
And just look at many of the kind of people that we're letting in through this open door policy. Sharia, the pan-Islamic party, launched a conference in London where they stated that their aim was for Britain to become an Islamic caliphate, where non-Muslims had no rights at all. Their conference was titled The Struggle for Islam and the Call for Khalifa, which is the word for caliphate. Opened by Dr. Abdul Wahid, it said, using the issue of terrorism and extremism, Western governments have embarked on a campaign to prevent the Muslim world establishing an Islamic government. The caliphate that will free the Muslim world from the terror and hegemony that has been brought upon it by the West. And what's in this freedom for the Muslims? Well, an example is Article 7 of its draft constitution, which declares that Muslims who have by themselves renounced Islam are guilty of apostasy from Islam and are to be executed. Extremist rubbish, of course. But thousands of Muslims turned up to cheer on this.
Yes, but out of the total number of Muslims in London, these thousands represent a small percentage. And anyway, you're wrong, bang, wrong, mate. Because it tends not to be new arrivals who back terrorism, mate. They're not the 1/4 plus of Muslims that Channel 4 discovered either back terrorism or perpetuate it. No, these are the offspring of the older generation who came over here in the 50s and 60s to escape persecution. The supposed persecution of their Islamic paradises, mate. Get your facts right!
Yeah, but that hardly exonerates Labour. Under this government, Western Islamic extremism has skyrocketed. Even the Pentagon has picked up on the fact that London is a major centre for extremist Islamic activity.
Well, you've got to give them freedom of speech, haven't you? But still, I think there's a risk that if we do give Islamic terrorists freedom of speech, people in the public are going to start abusing their freedom of speech by shouting and ranting about how the bloody hell we in Labour can let such extremists air their views and call for death against the West, mate. They've just got no tolerance, that's their trouble. People do things differently in other cultures, but still, that's the biggest in the British. If people don't do things their way, then they're obviously wrong. I don't believe her.
When dealing with truculent Muslims, the new Labour government always trip over themselves trying to be nice, and trying in their eyes to be even-handed and fair, when in fact all they ever end up doing is going far too far in giving out to people who are just basically ungrateful.
Yes, because when wayward sheep stray from the flock, you've got to be extra nice to them in order to lure them back into the mainstream. That's why we always like to try to buy off Muslim groups and community leaders with vast piles of taxpayers' money. to try and persuade them not to be extremist. I've got to tell ya. Vote Labour. Because you've got to be nice to people in order for them to probably be nice to you.
But it goes too far. Nobody else who actually behave themselves get this sort of thing, you know. The Jews don't go round Britain blowing things up, do they? Nor do the Buddhists or the Sikhs or any of the others. But, on the other hand, they don't get New Labour people crawling to them, begging them not to commit any atrocities, and paying them not to do so.
Investing in existing infrastructure, that's what I think you mean, mate.
Tosser. And that's why life, in part under New Labour, is just so unfair. More and more people are seeing the undeserving being given more and more of their taxpayer-funded resources in order to try and keep them on the straight and narrow. And this extends into all areas. For example, the criminal justice system, where Labour have tried to get shorter and shorter sentences and softer conditions so that criminals don't feel quite so marginalised when they end up being persuaded to be punished for their crimes. Well, persuaded is a bit too flippant a word there, but it seems like it with all these extra bloody yobs and thugs on the rampage. Even though there has been a slight drop in crime recently, it's still far too high.